"Look at you, you filthy little rat. You belong in the gutter." The scream tore through the sound of the storm as a obsidian-black Porsche swerved deliberately, tires screaming against the wet asphalt. A massive wave of brown sludge exploded upward, coating the woman on the sidewalk from hair to hem. "Beckham, please," she gasped, wiping mud from her eyes, but the window only rolled down to reveal a cruel, laughing face. "Don't beg, Josephine. It's pathetic, just like you." He didn't know the man watching from the shadows was the one man who could buy his entire life with a signature. The karma wasn't coming. It was already here. The rain in Manhattan didn't wash things clean, it just made the dirt slicker. Josephine Black stood on the corner of 57th and 5th Avenue, the towering glass facade of the Tiffany & Co. flagship store blurring behind a curtain of grey drizzle. She wasn't looking at the diamonds in the window. She was looking at the puddle, a vast oil-slicked lake of murky water pooling in the depressed asphalt near the curb. She checked her watch. It was a modest piece, a vintage leather strap watch that had belonged to her father, ticking away the seconds of her new life. At 28, Josephine felt ancient. The divorce had been finalized 3 months ago, but the scars felt fresh, pulled tight across her chest every time she inhaled the city smog. "Josephine?" The voice was a jagged shard of glass from a nightmare she thought she had woken up from. She froze. Her grip tightened on the leather portfolio tucked under her arm, her design sketches, the only thing she had managed to salvage from the wreckage of her marriage to Beckham Drake. Slowly she turned. Idling at the red light was a brand-new Porsche Panamera, its paint job a custom matte black that seemed to absorb the meager light of the stormy afternoon. The window hummed down. Beckham Drake sat in the driver's seat, looking every inch the rising tech mogul he claimed to be. His jaw was sharp, his hair perfectly gelled despite the humidity, and his eyes, cold, blue and mocking, raked over her. Beside him sat Poppy Wilde. Poppy, with her artificially plumped lips painted a jarring shade of coral, was giggling, her hand resting possessively on Beckham's thigh. "My God," Beckham sneered, his voice carrying over the hiss of the rain. "I thought that was a stray dog shaking off fleas. Turns out it's just my ex-wife." Josephine straightened her spine. She wore a simple beige trench coat, one she had bought from a thrift store, but she wore it like armor. "Beckham, Poppy, I see you're still driving fast to get nowhere." Poppy let out a high-pitched, cruel laugh. "Nowhere? Honey, we're on our way to dinner at Le Bernardin. I doubt you could afford the water there." "Leave me alone, Beckham," Josephine said, her voice steady, though her heart hammered against her ribs. "We have nothing to say to each other." "Oh, I have plenty to say," Beckham said, his grip tightening on the leather steering wheel. "I just signed the tentative agreement with the Ward Group. Once I secure the partnership with Caspian Frost, I'll be untouchable. I just wanted you to know that while you're standing here in the rain, looking like a drowned rat, I'm ascending to the gods." "Money doesn't make you a god, Beckham," Josephine said softly. "It just makes you a rich devil." Beckham's face darkened. The light on the traffic signal turned green. "You always did have a mouth on you," he spat. "Maybe this will wash it out." He didn't just accelerate. He cut the wheel hard to the right. The Porsche's massive tires slammed into the crater-sized puddle directly in front of Josephine. It wasn't a splash. It was a tidal wave. Thick, freezing sludge mixed with motor oil and street grit erupted into the air. Josephine gasped, turning away, but it was too late. The filthy water coated her instantly. It soaked her hair, plastered the beige trench coat to her skin in a heavy brown mess, and sprayed across her face. The cold was shocking, paralyzing. She stood there, blinded, the taste of grit in her mouth. From the receding car she heard Poppy's shrieking laughter and Beckham's shout, "Matches your soul, darling, filthy!" The Porsche roared away, weaving through traffic, leaving a trail of exhaust and cruelty. Josephine didn't cry. She couldn't. She felt hollowed out, scraped clean of emotion. She wiped the mud from her eyes with a trembling hand. Passers-by stared, some with pity, most with that New York indifference, stepping wide around her as if her bad luck was contagious. She looked down at herself, ruined. The portfolio was wet, but the plastic casing had saved the sketches. That was small mercy. "Ma'am, are you all right?" A doorman from a nearby hotel took a hesitant step toward her. Josephine nodded, though she was shaking violently from the cold. I'm fine." "That guy was a maniac," the doorman muttered. "He was my husband," she whispered, more to herself than him. She wasn't waiting for a bus. She wasn't waiting for a taxi. She was waiting for a ghost. Or rather, a man the world thought was a myth. A low, purring hum vibrated through the soles of her ruined shoes. It was a sound deeper and more authoritative than the aggressive snarl of Beckham's Porsche. A car pulled up to the curb, gliding to a halt exactly where the mud puddle had been. It wasn't a sports car. It was a fortress on wheels. A Rolls-Royce Phantom, extended wheelbase, painted a deep midnight blue that looked black until the light hit it. The spirit of ecstasy on the hood seemed to stare down the street where Beckham had fled. The rear door opened before the car even fully settled. A man stepped out. He didn't care about the rain. He didn't care about his Italian wool suit or the handcrafted leather shoes hitting the wet pavement. He moved with a predatory grace, ignoring the doorman, ignoring the traffic. He was tall, with broad shoulders that seemed to carry the weight of empires effortlessly. His face was severe, carved from granite, with dark eyes that usually held a terrifying indifference to the world. But right now, those eyes were burning with a terrifying volcanic rage as they fixed on Josephine's muddy form. "Caspian," Josephine breathed, her voice cracking. Caspian Frost, the billionaire tycoon, the ice king of New York, the man who owned half the skyline, stopped in front of her. He didn't recoil from the filth. He didn't look at her with disgust. He reached out, his large, warm hands cupping her mud-streaked face. "Who did this?" His voice was low, a rumble of thunder that promised violence. "Who touched my wife?" The interior of the Rolls-Royce was a sanctuary. The sound of the city was instantly severed as the heavy door thudded shut, replaced by the hushed silence of hermetically sealed luxury. The air smelled of aged cedar and expensive leather. Caspian didn't sit on the opposite side. He sat right next to her, pulling a cashmere blanket from a hidden compartment and wrapping it around her shivering shoulders. He didn't care that the mud was staining the pristine cream leather seats of a car worth $500,000. "I'm ruining the upholstery," Josephine murmured, staring at her hands. The mud was drying, tightening her skin. "I can buy 1,000 cars, Josephine," Caspian said, his voice surprisingly gentle as he took a handkerchief and began to carefully wipe a smudge of dirt from her cheek. "I cannot buy another you. Tell me." Josephine looked up at him. They had been married for exactly 6 days. It was a secret union, a courthouse affair with no guests, just signed papers and a quiet dinner afterwards. Nobody knew, not the press, not his board of directors, and certainly not Beckham. To the world, Josephine Black was a discarded divorcee, and Caspian Frost was the eternal bachelor, a man married to his work. They had met by chance in a library 3 months ago, just as her divorce proceedings were turning ugly. Caspian had seen her weeping over a legal document in a secluded corner. He hadn't offered money. He had offered a handkerchief and silence. They had talked for hours about architecture, about art, about loss. He had fallen for her quiet resilience. She had fallen for the man beneath the tycoon persona. It was Beckham, she admitted quietly. Caspian's hand stilled on her cheek. The temperature in the car seemed to drop 10 degrees. His eyes, usually a warm hazel when he looked at her, turned into chips of frozen amber. "Beckham Drake," Caspian repeated the name as if tasting a poison. "The CEO of Drake Dynamics, the man pitching for the contract with my logistics division. He He didn't know it was you coming to pick me up. He saw me standing there. He swerved into a puddle on purpose. Poppy was with him." Caspian turned his head to the front of the car. The partition was up, but he pressed the intercom button. "Lennox?" "Yes, Mr. Frost." The driver's voice was crisp, professional. Lennox Ward wasn't just a driver. He was Caspian's right hand, head of security, and fixer. "Pull the security footage from the Tiffany flagship and the surrounding traffic cams for the last 10 minutes. I want the license plate, the angle of the swerve, and the faces visible in the vehicle. Then I want a full audit of Drake Dynamics on my desk by tonight. Every loan, every liability, every skeleton in the closet." "Understood, sir. And the meeting scheduled with him regarding the merger?" Caspian looked back at Josephine. He pulled the blanket tighter around her, tucking a stray lock of wet hair behind her ear. His expression was unreadable to the outside world, but Josephine saw the promise of total annihilation in his gaze. "Keep the meeting," Caspian said softly, "but change the venue. Invite him to the Frost Gala on Saturday. Give him the illusion that he has already won." "Yes, sir." Caspian turned his full attention back to Josephine. He lifted her muddy hand and kissed the knuckles, heedless of the grit. "Why?" Josephine asked, trembling. "Why invite him?" "Because," Caspian said, his voice dark and smooth like velvet dragged over gravel. "Splash a man with mud, and he gets dirty for a day. Destroy his hope, his reputation, and his future in front of the entire city. That lasts a lifetime. He treated you like trash, Josephine. I'm going to show him that he threw away a diamond to pick up a stone." Josephine leaned her head against his shoulder, the adrenaline fading, leaving her exhausted. "I don't want revenge, Caspian. I just want to be free of him." "You are free," Caspian assured her, wrapping an arm around her waist. "But justice is required. He thinks he just humiliated an ex-wife. He has no idea he just declared war on the House of Frost." The car glided through the rain, heading toward the penthouse at 432 Park Avenue. Josephine closed her eyes. For years, Beckham had told her she was worthless, a burden, a decoration that had lost its shine. She felt the solid warmth of the billionaire beside her. She wasn't worthless. She was the hidden queen on a chessboard Beckham didn't even know he was playing on. Beckham Drake walked into his office like he owned the sunlight streaming through the windows, though the sky outside remained stubbornly grey. He tossed his keys onto the glass desk, a sprawling, pretentious thing made of imported Italian marble. "Did you see her face?" Poppy laughed, collapsing onto the leather sofa in the corner of his office. She kicked off her heels, resting her feet on the coffee table. She looked like a swamp creature. God, that was satisfying. Beckham chuckled, loosening his tie. He walked over to the wet bar and poured 2 glasses of scotch. She needed a reality check, walking around Midtown with that tragic portfolio. She probably thinks she can still make it as an interior designer. Without my connections, she's nothing. He handed the glass to Poppy and took a long sip. The burn of the alcohol felt like victory. "To us," he toasted, "and to the Frost deal." "Are you sure about this Caspian Frost guy?" Poppy asked, swirling her drink. "I heard he's difficult. They say he fired a VP once for wearing the wrong color tie to a negotiation." "Urban legends," Beckham dismissed, waving a hand. "He's a businessman. He looks at numbers, and Drake Dynamics has the numbers. We're offering him an AI-driven logistics integration that will save Frost Industries $3 billion a year. He'd be an idiot to say no. Besides," Beckham smirked, catching his reflection in the window, "I have charisma. Men like Frost, they need younger, hungrier guys like me to keep them relevant." His intercom buzzed. "Mr. Drake," came the nervous voice of his secretary, Sarah. "You have a call on line 1. It's Mr. Ward, from Frost Industries." Beckham froze. His eyes widened, meeting Poppy's excited gaze. He slammed the glass down, spilling a little amber liquid. "Put him through! Immediately!" He cleared his throat, adjusting his cufflinks, standing taller even though no one could see him. He pressed the speakerphone button. "This is Beckham Drake." "Mr. Drake." The voice on the other end was cool, clipped and utterly devoid of emotion. "This is Lennox Ward, executive assistant to Caspian Frost." "Mr. Ward, to what do I owe the pleasure? We were expecting to hear back about the preliminary pitch next week." "Mr. Frost has reviewed your proposal," Lennox said. "He is intrigued." Beckham pumped his fist in the air silently. Poppy squealed silently, clapping her hands. "That is excellent news," Beckham said, keeping his voice smooth. "We are ready to move to the next stage immediately." "Mr. Frost prefers to conduct final assessments in person, in a social setting," Lennox continued. "He is hosting the annual Frost Charity Gala this Saturday at the Plaza Hotel. It is an exclusive event. The invitation list is capped at 100 of the global elite." Beckham's heart hammered. The Frost Gala. It was the golden ticket. People killed to get into that room. If he was seen there, his stock price would triple overnight, regardless of the deal. "I would be honored to attend," Beckham said, trying not to sound desperate. "Mr. Frost insists," Lennox said. "He wants to announce a new strategic partnership during the keynote speech. He believes Drake Dynamics could be the highlight of the evening." I'm speechless. "Tell Mr. Frost I will be there." "Excellent. The invitation will be couriered to you within the hour." "Oh, and Mr. Drake." "Yes?" "Mr. Frost is a family man. He appreciates stability. He requested that you bring your partner. He prefers to see the character of the men he does business with." Beckham looked at Poppy. "Of course, my partner and I will be delighted." "Until Saturday, Mr. Drake." The line clicked dead. Beckham let out a shout of triumph that echoed off the walls. "Did you hear that? The highlight of the evening. He's going to announce the partnership at the gala." Poppy jumped up and wrapped her arms around his neck, kissing him fiercely. "We're going to be rich, Beck. Richer than you ever dreamed. You need to buy me a dress, something that screams billionaire's wife." "Get whatever you want," Beckham said, grabbing her waist. "Get a diamond the size of a fist. We've won." He walked to the window, looking down at the rainy streets of New York. Somewhere down there, Josephine was probably trying to scrub mud out of her cheap clothes in a tiny apartment. "I wish Josephine could see me on Saturday," Beckham mused, a cruel smile playing on his lips. "I really do." He had no idea that his wish was about to be granted in the most devastating way possible. Later that evening, at the Frost penthouse, Josephine emerged from the bathroom, wrapped in a robe made of silk so fine it felt like water. Her skin was scrubbed raw, pink from the heat of the shower, but the feeling of the sludge was still a phantom sensation on her skin. She walked into the bedroom. It was a massive space, dominated by floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park. Caspian was standing by the window, still in his dress shirt and trousers, though he had discarded his jacket. He was holding a glass of whiskey, staring out at the city lights. He turned as she entered. The rage that had been in his eyes earlier was gone, replaced by a deep, protective sadness. "Better?" he asked. "Clean, at least," she said, managing a small smile. Caspian set his drink down and walked over to her. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. "I was going to save this for the gala," he said, "but I think you need to know who you are tonight." He opened the box. Inside sat a ring that made Josephine gasp. It wasn't just a diamond. It was a rare blue diamond, a vivid, deep ocean blue, surrounded by a halo of flawless white stones. It was heavy, historical, and undeniably priceless. "Caspian. This is the heart of the ocean's sister stone," he said quietly. "It has been in my family vault for 60 years. My grandmother wore it. She was a woman who survived a war and built an empire from rubble. It belongs to a survivor." He took her hand, sliding the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly. Beckham has been invited to the gala, Caspian said, his voice hardening slightly. He thinks he is coming to be crowned king. He is bringing his mistress. He thinks you are irrelevant. Josephine looked at the ring, the blue fire dancing in the dim light. She thought of the mud, the laughter, the years of Beckham telling her she was too plain, too quiet, too simple to understand his world. She looked up at Caspian, her eyes dry and fierce. "Let him come," she said. Caspian smiled, and it was a dangerous, shark-like thing. "Oh, he will come. And when he sees you, standing beside me, wearing the Frost family crest, he will realize that the mud he threw at you was the only ground he had left to stand on." "What do I need to do?" Josephine asked. "For now, nothing. Just prepare. Tomorrow, stylists will arrive. You won't look like Josephine Black, the divorcee. You will look like Josephine Frost, the Empress of New York." Caspian pulled her close, kissing her forehead. "Saturday is going to be a bloodbath, my love, and you won't have to lift a finger." Friday bled into Saturday, a blur of activity that felt less like beauty preparation and more like the forging of a weapon. The penthouse at 432 Park Avenue had been transformed into a command center of high fashion. Racks of couture gowns, flown in overnight from Paris and Milan, lined the hallway. Josephine stood on a pedestal in the center of the dressing room, her arms slightly raised. A team of 3 seamstresses moved around her like silent hummingbirds, pinning and tucking. "The structure is impeccable," the head stylist, a severe French woman named Daisy, murmured. "But the color, it must be the midnight blue. It speaks to the Frost legacy." Josephine looked at herself in the floor-to-ceiling mirror. The woman staring back was a stranger. Her hair, usually pulled back in a messy bun, had been treated with oils and masks until it cascaded down her back in a glossy, dark river. Her skin, scrubbed of the mud and the years of stress, glowed with a hydration that only money could buy. The dress they selected was a custom creation by Atelier Versace. It was a deep, midnight blue velvet that hugged her curves with dangerous precision before flaring out slightly at the floor. It was strapless, exposing the elegant slope of her neck and shoulders. Shoulders that Beckham had always told her were too broad, too tense. Now they looked like the marble shoulders of a statue. "And now," Daisy said, stepping back, "the pièce de résistance." Caspian entered the room. He was already dressed in a bespoke tuxedo, cut from black silk that absorbed the light. He looked devastatingly handsome, but his eyes were fixed solely on Josephine. He held the velvet box from the night before. He walked up behind her, meeting her eyes in the reflection of the mirror. He placed the Heart of the Ocean's sister stone necklace around her neck. The cool platinum settled against her skin, the massive blue diamond resting in the hollow of her throat, pulsing with inner fire. "You look dangerous," Caspian whispered, his hands lingering on her bare shoulders. "I feel terrifying," Josephine admitted. "What if I trip? What if I say the wrong thing? Beckham knows how to work these rooms. I've only ever stood in the corner holding his drink." Caspian turned her around, his grip firm. "You are not holding anyone's drink tonight, Josephine. You are the host. You are the reason the champagne is pouring. And as for Beckham, he isn't working the room. The room is a shark tank, and he is bleeding. He just doesn't know it yet." Across the city, in a starkly modern, over-leveraged apartment in Tribeca, the atmosphere was chaotic. "I can't believe the zipper is stuck. Do something, Beck!" Poppy shrieked, struggling with a neon-pink sequined gown that looked more appropriate for a nightclub in Vegas than a black-tie gala at the plaza. Beckham Drake ignored her, pacing the living room with a phone pressed to his ear. He was sweating despite the air conditioning. "I don't care what the liquidity ratio is," Beckham snapped into the phone. "Leverage the Series B funding. Yes, all of it. I need the cash flow to show solvency for the Frost audit on Monday. Once the partnership is announced tonight, the stock will skyrocket, and we can pay back the loans before anyone notices." He listened for a moment, his face twitching. Just do it, Marcus. If you don't authorize the transfer, you're fired. I am the CEO. He hung up, throwing the phone onto the sofa. His hands were trembling. He had bet everything, literally everything, on this deal with Caspian Frost. He had drained the company accounts to lease the new Porsche, to rent this apartment, to buy the engagement ring for Poppy that was currently sitting on the credit card limit. If Caspian Frost said no, Beckham Drake wasn't just broke. He was going to prison for embezzlement. "Beck, the zipper!" Poppy whined. He walked over and yanked the zipper up with unnecessary force, pinching her skin. "Ouch! Stop whining," he hissed. "Do you have any idea how important tonight is? You need to look perfect. You need to look like money. Does that dress even have a label?" "It's custom," Poppy lied, pouting. "Why are you being so mean? We're celebrating tonight." Beckham took a deep breath, smoothing down his tuxedo jacket. He checked his reflection. He looked the part. He looked like a winner. That was all that mattered. Perception was reality. "You're right," he said, forcing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "I'm sorry, babe, it's just big leagues tension. Tonight, we sit at the table with gods. Caspian Frost is going to shake my hand in front of the world. And Josephine," he laughed darkly, "Josephine is probably heating up a microwave dinner in that rat-hole apartment I left her in." "She's the past," Poppy said, admiring her reflection. "We're the future." "Exactly," Beckham said, checking his watch, a Rolex he had bought on a payment plan. "Let's go. The limousine is waiting. I want to arrive exactly 10 minutes late. Make them wait for the stars of the show." The grand ballroom of the Plaza Hotel was a cavern of gold leaf, crystal, and old money. The air was thick with the scent of expensive lilies and the murmur of deals being struck between billionaires. A string quartet played softly in the corner, though the music was barely audible over the clinking of baccarat crystal glasses. Outside, the paparazzi were a frenzy of flashbulbs. When the black-stretched limousine pulled up, Beckham waited a beat before opening the door. He stepped out, flashing his practiced CEO smile, waving to cameras that were mostly waiting for Hollywood stars or tech giants more famous than him. He took Poppy's hand. She stumbled slightly on the red carpet, waving frantically at a photographer who was actually adjusting his lens. "Chin up," Beckham muttered through his teeth. "Walk slow, own it." They made their way up the grand staircase and into the ballroom. Beckham paused at the entrance, expecting a hush to fall over the crowd, expecting Lennox Ward to be waiting with a glass of champagne to usher him to the VIP table. No one looked. The room was a sea of black tuxedos and tasteful gowns in muted tones of emerald, gold, and silver. Poppy's neon-pink dress stood out like a flare in a coal mine. Several older women in pearls glanced at her, whispered behind their fans, and turned away. "Where is he?" Beckham scanned the room, his anxiety spiking. "Where is Frost?" "Maybe he's not here yet," Poppy suggested, grabbing a glass of champagne from a passing tray and downing half of it in one gulp. "He's the host, you idiot. Of course he's here." Beckham spotted a familiar face near the ice sculpture. It was Lennox Ward, standing stoically with an earpiece, looking like a Secret Service agent in a tuxedo. Beckham straightened his tie and marched over, dragging Poppy with him. "Mr. Ward," Beckham boomed, extending his hand. "Good evening." Incredible turnout. Lennox turned slowly. His expression was one of polite boredom. He did not take the hand immediately. He looked at Beckham's hand, then up at his face, and finally gave a brief, firm shake. "Mr. Drake, you made it." "Wouldn't miss it for the world," Beckham beamed. "Is Mr. Frost around? I'm eager to discuss the announcement." "Mr. Frost is currently detained with his wife," Lennox said smoothly. Beckham blinked. "Wife? I didn't know Caspian Frost was married. I thought he was the world's most eligible bachelor." "Mr. Frost values his privacy above all else," Lennox said. "He was married recently. Tonight is her introduction to society." Oh, wow, a double celebration then. Beckham laughed, nudging Poppy. Well, when he's ready, we'd love to say hello. Maybe get a photo for the press release. Lennox's eyes narrowed slightly. Mr. Frost will address the guests from the stage shortly. Your table is over there. Lennox pointed a gloved hand toward the back of the room, not the front, near the stage, the back, near the kitchen doors, table 42. Beckham's smile faltered. Oh, I assumed, given the partnership announcement. The seating chart is complex, Mr. Drake. Enjoy the evening. Lennox turned away, effectively dismissing him, tapping his earpiece. Eagle is in the nest. I repeat, eagle is in the nest. Beckham stood there, humiliated. Why are we by the kitchen? Poppy asked, wrinkling her nose. I can smell the shrimp. It's a mistake, Beckham hissed, his face flushing red. Lennox is just an assistant. He doesn't know the details. Once Caspian sees me, he'll move us to the head table. Come on. They sat at table 42. It was populated by minor donors, a few city council members, and a deaf elderly woman who kept asking Beckham to pass the salt. Beckham drank 3 glasses of champagne in quick succession. He watched the head table. It was currently empty, waiting for the king and queen. Look at them, Beckham muttered, glaring at the room. These people born into money. They don't know the grind. They don't know what I had to do to get here. You splashed your ex-wife with mud, Poppy giggled, a little drunk. That was funny. She deserved it, Beckham snapped, dragging me down with her mediocrity. Tonight I rise, and she... He stopped. The heavy double doors at the top of the grand staircase opened. The music stopped abruptly. The room went silent. A spotlight hit the top of the stairs. Ladies and gentlemen, the announcer's voice boomed. Please welcome your host, Mr. Caspian Frost, and Mrs. Josephine Frost. Beckham choked on his champagne. Who? Beckham wasn't looking at the woman at first. He was looking at Caspian Frost. The billionaire looked like a titan commanding the room with a mere glance. But then the crowd gasped, a collective intake of breath that rippled through the ballroom like a wave. Beckham followed their gaze. Descending the stairs on Caspian's arm was a vision. The midnight blue velvet dress caught the light, making her look like she was wrapped in the night sky itself. The diamonds at her throat blazed with a fire that could blind a man. She moved with a regal, terrifying grace, her chin held high, her eyes scanning the crowd with a coolness that froze the blood. It was the face, the cheekbones, the eyes. No. Beckham whispered. The glass slipped from his fingers, shattering on the floor. Poppy jumped. Beck, you broke the glass. Shut up, Beckham hissed, not looking at her. He stood up, knocking his chair back. That's impossible. What? Who is it? Poppy squinted. She's pretty. Is that the wife? It was Josephine. But it wasn't the Josephine he knew. It wasn't the woman who wore thrift store sweaters and apologized for taking up space. It wasn't the woman who cried when he missed their anniversary. It wasn't the woman standing in the rain, covered in mud, looking broken. This woman was a queen. It can't be, Beckham muttered, his mind racing. She's a con artist. She must be. Denial crashed over him like a physical blow. There was no way Josephine Black, the woman he had discarded like trash 3 months ago, had married the most powerful man in New York. It was a trick, a hallucination, or... She's crashing, Beckham said aloud, a manic grin spreading across his face. She's crashing the party. She got a job here. Maybe she seduced him. She's trying to get back at me. What are you talking about? Poppy asked, looking confused. That, Beckham pointed a shaking finger, is my ex-wife. Poppy's jaw dropped. The mud girl? That's her. But, look at those diamonds. Those look real, Beck. They're fake, Beckham snapped. She's pulling a stunt. She's trying to ruin my big night. I have to stop this. I have to warn Caspian. Beckham didn't think. He didn't process the fact that the announcer had introduced her as Mrs. Frost. His ego was so inflated, so fragile, that it rewrote reality to protect itself. In his mind, Josephine was incapable of success without him. Therefore, this had to be a fraud. He pushed his way through the crowd, ignoring the glares of the people he shoved. Caspian and Josephine had reached the bottom of the stairs and were moving through the crowd, shaking hands. The elite of New York bowed to them. The mayor was kissing Josephine's hand. Beckham broke through the line of people just as Caspian turned to speak to a senator. Josephine was momentarily standing alone, accepting a compliment from a duchess. Beckham lunged. He grabbed Josephine's upper arm, his grip hard and bruising. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" he hissed in her ear. Josephine didn't flinch. She turned her head slowly, looking at the hand on her arm, then up at his face. Her expression was one of mild distaste, as if a cockroach had crawled onto her velvet gown. "Hello, Beckham," she said. Her voice was calm, icy. "You're wrinkling the Versace." "Cut the act, Joe," Beckham spat, lowering his voice but keeping the intensity. "How did you get in here? Who did you sleep with? The doorman? Did you rent the dress? You look ridiculous." "I look expensive," Josephine corrected him, a small cold smile playing on her lips. "And you look desperate. You're sweating, Beckham." "I am about to sign the biggest deal of my life," Beckham shouted, drawing the attention of the nearby guests. "I am here to meet Caspian Frost. You are going to get yourself arrested. Leave now, before I call security and tell them you're a stalker." "You want to call security?" Josephine asked, arching an eyebrow. "I'm doing you a favor." Beckham's eyes were wild. He squeezed her arm harder. "Get out. Go back to your gutter. You don't belong here. You're nothing. I made you, and I broke you. You think putting on a costume changes that? Let go of my wife." The voice didn't come from behind Beckham. It came from everywhere. It was a low growl that seemed to drop the temperature of the room to absolute zero. Beckham froze. He released Josephine's arm as if it were red-hot iron. He turned slowly. Caspian Frost was standing there. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't playing the polite host. He looked like a predator that had just found its prey in a trap. His eyes were focused entirely on Beckham Drake. Mr. Frost," Beckham stammered, wiping his sweaty palms on his tuxedo pants. I was just handling a security breach for you. This woman, she's my ex-wife. She's mentally unstable. She must have snuck in to harass me. I was just telling her to leave so she doesn't embarrass you." The silence that followed was heavy enough to crush a man. The circle of guests around them, senators, CEOs, royals, watched with bated breath. Caspian took a step forward, invading Beckham's personal space. He towered over him. "You were protecting me?" Caspian asked softly. Yes, exactly," Beckham laughed nervously. "We're partners, right? Drake Dynamics and Frost Industries. I got your back. She's trash, honestly. I don't know how she got that dress." Caspian turned his gaze to Josephine. He reached out and gently touched the red mark beginning to form on her arm where Beckham had grabbed her. His expression softened into heartbreak for a fleeting second before hardening into pure, unadulterated wrath as he looked back at Beckham. "Lennox," Caspian said, not raising his voice. Lennox Ward appeared instantly at his side. "Yes, sir." "Mr. Drake seems to be confused," Caspian said, his voice carrying clearly through the silent ballroom. "He believes he is speaking to an intruder. Please clarify for him who this woman is." Lennox stepped forward, his face impassive. "Mr. Drake, you are addressing Mrs. Josephine Frost, co-owner of the Frost Corporation, chairwoman of the Frost Foundation, and the wife of Mr. Caspian Frost." The color drained from Beckham's face so fast he looked like a corpse. "What?" Beckham whispered. He looked at Poppy, who had caught up and was standing there with her mouth open. He looked at Josephine. Josephine stepped forward. She smoothed the velvet of her sleeve. "I'm not the trash, Beckham," she said, her voice ringing clear as a bell. "I'm the one holding the keys to the castle you're trying to enter." Beckham stared at her. The room began to spin. The deal, the loans, the leverage, the mud. "But," Beckham stammered, "the partnership, the announcement." Caspian smiled. It was the smile of the executioner. "Oh yes," Caspian said, "the announcement. I think it's time we made that now." Caspian offered his arm to Josephine. "Shall we, my love?" She took it, looking at Beckham with a pity that was worse than hatred. "We shall." They walked past him, toward the stage, leaving Beckham standing in the center of the ballroom, the eyes of the entire world drilling into his back. He felt small, he felt dirty, and for the first time in his life, he was truly afraid. The walk to the stage was a study in power dynamics. As Caspian guided Josephine up the velvet-carpeted steps, the room didn't just go silent, it seemed to stop breathing. The air in the grand ballroom, previously thick with the scent of expensive lilies and baccarat crystal, now smelled of ozone and impending violence. Caspian adjusted the microphone stand. The chrome gleamed under the harsh spotlight. He didn't speak immediately. He let the silence stretch, heavy and suffocating, for 10 agonizing seconds. He placed a hand on the small of Josephine's back, a protective, possessive gesture that screamed to the room, "She is mine, and she is royalty." Beckham stood paralyzed near the center of the dance floor, a lone island in a sea of retreating tuxedos. People were instinctively stepping back, creating a perimeter of isolation around him. "Beck, what's going on?" Poppy tugged at his sleeve, her voice rising in panic. "Why are they up there? Beck, answer me. Is she really his wife?" "Shut up," Beckham hissed, though the sound was barely a ghost of his usual arrogance. His heart hammered against his ribs like a trapped bird. "It's a trick," his mind screamed, a broken record of denial. "She's a paid actress, a hallucination. This isn't real." But the blue diamond at her throat was real. The way the mayor of New York looked at her with deference was real. Caspian leaned into the microphone. His voice was a rich baritone, amplified to fill every corner of the cavernous hall. It was calm, resonant, and utterly terrifying. "Distinguished guests, friends, competitors," Caspian began, his eyes sweeping the upper balcony before dropping to the floor. "Tonight was meant to be a celebration of the future. In business, as in life, we look for partners who mirror our values. Integrity, vision, resilience, the pillars of the Frost legacy." He paused, his gaze locking directly onto Beckham. The stage lights reflected in Caspian's dark eyes, making them look like obsidian. "I had planned to announce a strategic logistics partnership tonight," Caspian continued, his voice deceptively smooth. "A merger with a rising firm, Drake Dynamics, to integrate their shipping AI with our global network." A ripple of whispers went through the crowd. Beckham's knees nearly buckled. He's still saying the name, Beckham thought, a jagged shard of hope piercing his chest. He's a businessman first. He won't throw away billions over a personal grudge. He's going to announce it. However, Caspian's voice dropped an octave, the temperature in the room plummeting with it. Due diligence is not just about balance sheets, it is about character. And this week, I learned that the leadership of Drake Dynamics is morally bankrupt. The hope in Beckham's chest shattered. "I witnessed a man," Caspian narrated, pacing slowly across the stage, "a CEO who claims to be a visionary, drive a $200,000 vehicle through a gutter to intentionally soak a pedestrian, a woman he laughed at, a woman he called trash, a woman he claimed was unworthy of the very air he breathed." The gasps were audible now, sharp intakes of breath from the city's elite. Heads turned, eyes narrowed. The social exile was beginning in real time. "That woman," Caspian said, stopping beside Josephine and taking her hand, raising it to his lips, "is my wife, Josephine Frost, and the man who did it is standing right there." Caspian pointed. It wasn't a casual gesture. It was an indictment, A bolt of lightning. "Beckham Drake," Caspian said, his voice thundering, vibrating the champagne in the glasses. "You came here tonight expecting a coronation. You expected my capital to save your leveraged assets. You expected to use the Frost name to paper over the cracks in your failing empire." Beckham felt the blood drain from his face, leaving him dizzy. The spotlight swung around, blinding him, pinning him like an insect to a board. Josephine stepped forward. She touched the microphone. She didn't look angry. She didn't look bitter. She looked unreachably high. "Beckham," she said. Her voice was different, steady, musical, devoid of the fear he used to instill in her. "You spent 5 years telling me I was small to make yourself feel big. You told me I was a stain on your life." She paused, looking out at the sea of faces, then down at him. "But stains wash off, Beckham. Cruelty, that rots you from the inside out. I don't want your ruin," she continued softly, the room hanging on her every syllable. "I just want you to know that the mud you threw didn't bury me. It was the soil I needed to finally grow." Caspian took the microphone back, his expression turning to stone. "Effective immediately, Frost Industries is withdrawing all preliminary offers to Drake Dynamics. I am also advising my board, and everyone in this room, that Mr. Drake's liquidity is non-existent and his character is a liability. We do not do business with men who derive power from the humiliation of others." He looked toward the shadows near the exit. "Mr. Ward." Lennox Ward stepped into the light, looking grim. "Please escort Mr. Drake and his guest out," Caspian commanded. "They are trespassing on private property." The humiliation was absolute. It wasn't just a rejection, it was a public execution of his social standing. 2 security guards, built like linebackers, materialized on either side of Beckham. "Don't touch me!" Beckham screamed, his composure finally snapping. The veneer of the CEO dissolved, revealing the scared bully beneath. "You can't do this. We had a verbal agreement. My lawyers will bury you. I'll sue you for defamation." "Beck, stop it," Poppy hissed, shielding her face with her clutch, her cheeks burning crimson. "Everyone is looking. You're making it worse." "Let them look," Beckham roared, trying to shake off a guard's hand. He pointed a shaking finger at the stage. "She's a fraud. She's manipulating him. She's a nothing. I made her." "Sir, you need to walk, or we will drag you," the guard said, his voice low and bored. They didn't wait for his compliance. They grabbed his arms, lifting him onto his toes. As he was marched backward through the parting crowd, Beckham looked back one last time. He saw Josephine standing under the golden cascade of the chandelier, the blue diamond at her throat shining like a captured star. She wasn't looking at him anymore. She had turned to Caspian, laughing at something he whispered, her hand resting gently on his chest. She had already forgotten him. The fall of Beckham Drake was not a slow, graceful decline. It was a cliff dive into jagged rocks. The ride home from the gala was silent. Poppy sat as far away from him as possible in the Uber, scrolling frantically through her phone, her face illuminated by the harsh blue light of the screen. "Stop looking at it," Beckham snapped, staring out the window at the blurred city lights. "I can't," she whispered. "It's trending, Beck." "Mud CEO. Frostbite. There's a video of you screaming. 2 million views in an hour." Beckham closed his eyes. The next morning, Sunday, broke with a grey, relentless drizzle that matched the ruin of his life. The headlines screamed from every digital surface. "Billionaire's bride soaked by ex. Frost freezes out Drake. The mud-slinging CEO. Beckham Drake humiliated at gala. Drake Dynamics, stock expected to plummet Monday." Beckham sat in his Tribeca apartment, the shades drawn against the day. He was still wearing his tuxedo trousers and a stained undershirt. His phone had been ringing non-stop for 6 hours, not with offers, but with demands. The Series B investors, the bank, the landlord. "Beckham." The voice was sharp. He looked up. Poppy was standing in the hallway. She wasn't wearing the neon dress or the silk robe he had bought her. She was wearing distressed jeans and a vintage tee, struggling with a massive Louis Vuitton suitcase. "Where are you going?" Beckham rasped. His throat was raw, his eyes bloodshot. "I'm leaving," Poppy said, checking her reflection in the hallway mirror one last time. She didn't look sad. She looked annoyed. "I booked a flight to LA. My agent says if I distance myself now, I might be able to spin this as me being a victim of your toxicity." Toxicity? Beckham stood up, knocking over a stack of unread legal notices. "I'm your fiancé. We're a team. You were laughing in the car when I splashed her." "We're not married," Poppy corrected him coldly, her hand on the doorknob. "And I was laughing because I thought you were a winner. But looking at the news, you're broke, Beck. The investors are pulling out. The bank called my cell phone looking for you. It's embarrassing. You gold-digging." "Save it," she cut him off. "You have nothing left to dig for." The door slammed shut, the sound echoing like a gunshot in the empty apartment. Beckham was alone, but the universe wasn't finished with him yet. An hour later, a heavy pounding shook the door. It wasn't a polite knock. It was the authoritative thud of law enforcement. Beckham opened it to find a team of men in grey jumpsuits, led by a man with a clipboard and a sheriff's deputy. "Beckham Drake?" the leader asked, not making eye contact. "Yes, what is this?" "Asset seizure order, pursuant to the default on your primary business loans, which were personally guaranteed by, well, everything you own." "You can't do this on a Sunday," Beckham stammered, blocking the doorway. "Judge signed the emergency order last night. Step aside, sir." They swarmed the apartment like locusts. Beckham stood in the corner, watching his life be dismantled. They took the Italian marble desk where he had plotted his empire. They took the 85-inch television. They took the limited edition art prints. "Hey!" Beckham shouted as two men lifted the leather sofa. "Watch the leather!" "It's not your leather anymore, buddy," one of the movers grunted. Then came the final blow. "We need the keys to the Porsche," the deputy said. "No," Beckham whispered. "Not the car. It's raining. I can't take the subway." "Keys, now, or we add obstruction to your problems." Beckham handed over the heavy fob. It felt like handing over his soul. By noon, the apartment was a hollow shell. Dust bunnies danced in the corners where expensive furniture used to sit. The only thing left was a single folding chair the movers had deemed worthless. Beckham sat on the floor, hugging his knees. He picked up his phone to call his mother, the only person who might take him in. Service suspended. He stared at the black screen. He had wanted to be untouchable. He had wanted to be a god. Now he was just a man in an empty room, listening to the rain fall against the glass, realizing that the silence of his life was louder than any scream. 1 year later. The spring air in Central Park was sweet, carrying the scent of blooming cherry blossoms and wet earth. It was a soft day, the kind of day that made New York feel like a small town. Josephine sat on a wooden bench near the conservatory garden, a charcoal pencil moving fluidly across a sketch pad. She looked different. The deep lines of tension that had bracketed her mouth for years were gone, smoothed away by peace and security. She wore a simple white linen sundress and leather sandals. No diamonds today, just the simple gold band on her finger. "The designs for the new orphanage wing are brilliant," Caspian said, sitting down beside her. He placed 2 paper cups of tea on the bench. "The architects are terrified of you, you know. They said you know more about structural integrity than they do." Josephine laughed, a bright, uninhibited sound. She took the tea, warming her hands. "I learned a lot about patching up cracks in my old life. I want this building to be solid. No cracks, no leaks." She leaned her head on Caspian's shoulder. He wrapped an arm around her, kissing the top of her head. They watched a group of children chasing a golden retriever across the grass. Among them was Maya, the 6-year-old girl they were fostering, her laughter ringing out like a bell. "I saw him," Caspian said quietly, breaking the comfortable silence. Josephine didn't need to ask who. She stiffened slightly, a reflex from an old life, then deliberately relaxed her muscles. Where? Midtown, 34th Street. He was coming out of a temp agency. Josephine looked down at her sketch of a garden archway. How did he look? Older, Caspian said honestly. Tired. He's working sales for a mid-tier paper supply company, commission-based. He was wearing a suit that didn't fit him anymore. Caspian paused. He saw me. He was waiting at the crosswalk. When he realized who I was, he turned around and walked the other way. He didn't have an umbrella, and it was starting to drizzle. Josephine closed her eyes. She thought about the anger she had carried for so long, the burning, acid desire to see Beckham hurt the way he had hurt her. She thought about the mud, the insults, the way he made her feel small. But hearing about him now, shivering in the rain, selling paper, alone in a suit that was too big, she didn't feel triumph. She didn't feel joy. She felt nothing. The karma hadn't been a lightning strike from the heavens. It hadn't been a grand explosion. It had been a mirror. Beckham was finally living the reality of who he was. A small man, stripping away the pretenses until only the mediocrity remained. He was living the life he had tried to force upon her, grey, unnoticed, and cold. I don't care, Josephine said softly, and for the first time it was the absolute truth. He's just a stranger now. Good, Caspian said. Let's go home. Maya is going to want ice cream. They stood up, gathering their things. As they walked away, arm in arm, under the shelter of Caspian's large black umbrella, they approached the curb. A yellow taxi sped by, hitting a pothole filled with rainwater. A sheet of dirty water sprayed up, arching toward them. Josephine didn't flinch. She didn't scream. Caspian simply shifted the umbrella with a practiced grace, blocking the spray instantly. The water rattled harmlessly against the fabric and dripped away. Josephine smiled at her husband. They stepped over the puddle, leaving the mud behind them, and walked into the sunlight of their life. The story of Josephine and Beckham isn't just about wealth or revenge. It's a reminder that the wheel of fortune is always turning. Beckham thought his position was permanent, that his cruelty had no cost because he was above the consequences. But the universe has a way of balancing the scales. He used mud to degrade her, but that mud became the foundation of her new life, while his diamond-encrusted existence turned out to be nothing but cheap glass. True power isn't about who you can crush, it's about who you can lift up. Josephine didn't need to destroy Beckham. She just needed to outgrow him. If you enjoyed this story of justice served cold, make sure to hit that like button. It really helps the channel grow and lets us know you want more stories like this. Don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell so you never miss a drama-filled upload. What do you think? Did Beckham deserve a harsher punishment, or is living a mediocre life the ultimate torture for a narcissist? Let me know in the comments below. Until next time, remember, be careful who you step on while you're climbing up, because you might have to pass them on your way down. Thanks for watching.